Welcome back to another episode of Mondays on Montlake. I am your host, Montlake Miguel. Today is a very exciting show, and we're going to get into a lot. First thing is what I learned watching fall camp, my final verdict. I came into camp with a lot of questions. After watching camp throughout August, I finally have what I think are some answers. But before we get into that, make sure you go hit that like, subscribe button. Make sure if you're on Twitter, you're leaving a comment, sharing it with everybody else. And if you're on YouTube, man, the subscriptions are big. It gets us up in the algorithm. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes, like as I like to say, of the episode, big announcement happening. So, as you guys know, I'm part of the Dubbed Up family, the Dubbed Up podcast the last 3 years. And the Dubbed Up family is expanding. And what I mean by that is Mondays on Montlake is going to continue into the season as kind of a brother channel in the network that is Dubbed Up. That's big news because we're expanding. We're taking this season on like a tidal wave. We're not just trickling in there. With that, I'm going to be on a couple of the Dubbed Up episodes, but more than anything, Mondays on Montlake Miguel is going to be here, and I'm bringing a friend. That's the big news for Mondays on Montlake. The guy that I'm going to be bringing in here is actually pretty well known. I'm bringing in ESPN and CBS bracketology correspondent Rocco Miller. He's founder of bracketeer.org. He's a WSBWA member in the Field of 68 media contributor. He's the lead bracketologist on fielding the 68 live. This guy's a big time dude, but more than anything, he's from the Seattle area, went to Kamiak, and he's a gigantic Dawgs fan. And he's about to be on Mondays on Montlake with me, giving me the X's and O's because that's what he is known for. So he might be a guy that a lot of people know for basketball, but what you don't know about Rocco Miller is he's a huge Husky guy, and he flies up here from the Bay for games. Him and my brother Dozer been knowing each other for years. We actually were in LA together for the Rose Bowl in 2018. So it's gonna be a fun year. And Mondays on Montlake is just going to keep it rolling. I'm also going to still be appearing with Rocco on a couple episodes of Dubbed Up during the season. We're going to have some crossover episodes, but the family's expanding, the network's expanding. I hope you guys are here for it. Now that we got the pleasantries out the way, let's go to some more pleasantries. So I've had a chance to watch this Washington team throughout fall camp. And Saturday was my final look at the team before they closed practices and everything off to the media. And I came back with just one real intense feeling. And that is this team has a real chance and shot at being really good this year. They're big on both sides of the line. They're athletic. They're young players who are going to, they've got young players that are going to contribute early and a lot earlier than I expected. And most importantly, they have a quarterback who's ready to take that next step. We saw that with Jeron Williams. So instead of just recapping the mock game, I want to go through the questions that I had going into fall camp and show you what I've learned as a result of this. So let's jump right into it. I think the first question we all had was, who is going to be running back number one, the starting running back, RB1? You know, after the last few weeks of fall camp, I think unequivocally it's been Quaid Carr. You know, I knew during spring he had a real shot, but when I watched the mock game from Friday, what I realized is, first of all, he had some big plays. On the first drive, he had like a 15-yard run, then like a 60-yard touchdown run. And then as the game went on, I mean, he was making catches. He was literally all over the place. And when I started looking back at my notes over the fall, I noticed in early August he was already kind of running as the starting tailback. Through August, you know, he continued carrying the ball well, and it was sticking out every time I saw him. And eventually, through the two scrimmages that I attended, he was the guy. And they made it very known that he's the guy that's going to be toting the rock. Because that felt so obvious through camp, especially with the injuries to Lamar and Cooley still coming back. But even with Cooley back, he played a lot of the last couple weeks. He still wasn't able to overtake Quaid Carr. The next question that leaves me with then is who's going to be RB2? Because in college football, you don't just have one guy. You have a couple guys and they go back and forth. And with the injuries and everything that I've seen, I think there's a real chance that Brian Bonner sneaks in and grabs that number 2 spot. I think you'll see Lamar and you'll see a lot of Cooley. And I think you're going to see Bonner all kind of get reps through these first like 3 games in the non-conference. But Bonner put on some extra weight. And as I watched him throughout spring and specifically in the spring game, I started noticing him getting more and more carries, getting stronger and stronger, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. If his blocking is up to par, I don't see why they would want to not have a young guy that's ready to go, that they put all this emphasis in when they recruited him 4-star coming out this year, why they wouldn't let him get more carries. So we will see. That's kind of my little hot pick to click as we go into the season. The second thing that really kind of stuck out to me, and you saw it every single week of the fall camp, is Damon Williams looks ready. He doesn't look like a guy that is still tiptoeing around the offense, still learning the offense. We started seeing the maturity that you wanted to see. He had a couple big plays in the mock game this weekend. He had a nice 18-yard pass to like Rashid Williams. Then he hit Baron Naone for 35 yards. He also threw a touchdown pass actually to Baron Naone, which we're going to get into that. But a couple of the plays that stuck out to me were when he would experience some pressure, instead of even just looking at it like, oh, this is a mock game, he found his check down, took the safe pass, and lived to fight another day as opposed to trying to force it. Things that we didn't see last year. And it ended up opening up things because then you started seeing him avoid the rush and they started covering the check down and he hit Christian Moss for like a 20-yard pass. He had another pass to Moss that should have been a touchdown but was called back because I think of an ineligible man downfield. Then he hit Lawson for like a 35-yard pass. What we're starting to know is this. Damon and Rashid Williams have been on the same page. Damon and Desmond Roebuck have been on the same page. And now you're starting to see it with Moss and Chris Lawson. And you're starting to see a lot of these guys level their game up on the receiving side. And Damon notices this, and you can tell he's more comfortable with them. And that leads me into the next thing. I think Rashid Williams is no doubt right now in my mind wide receiver 1 for UW. The last couple weeks we didn't see a lot of Roebuck. There was personal things. I don't know if there was any injury stuff, but he didn't play in the mock game, and he didn't. I don't think he played much during the week this week. And what I started noticing when I was looking back at my notes from practice is every time I was there, I said something like, Damon and Rashid are on the same page, or Rashid continues to look reliable, or Rashid is a trusted target of Damon when he's in trouble. And you started seeing it then in the mock game where he was making plays and when the lights were on him, they weren't too big for Rashid. And now that Rashid is healthy, to me, he's looking very much like wide receiver 1, or maybe him and Roebuck are wide receiver 1 and 1A. And I think it's going to open it up for those guys a lot because you're not going to be able to just shut down one wide receiver like they tried to do last year. Not to mention all the young guys that are going to be coming up through there, which is going to kind of bring me into that wide receiver 3 battle that we had talked about leading into camp and all through camp. I thought that Christian Moss, and I still think Christian Moss is probably your starter, but Chris Lawson won't go away. You're starting to notice that he's making plays and plays and plays, and he has that kind of almost like a Jalen McMillan type quality about him. And I really, really like it a lot. And then when you mix that with a guy like Moss, who is that big bodied receiver who looks really, really good. His hands look really sure. I'm curious to see what happens when the hitting really starts. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Because if he is, we have a lot of guys that we're going to be able to throw in here, and I haven't even got into how good Justice Williams looked during the mock game. He looked like finally took that step up, and then Trez Davis, Jordan Clay, all these guys. There's a lot of guys out there that are going to be able to step in and make plays, and I think you're going to see a really nice rotation at that number three wide receiver position. Another thing that really stuck out to me in the mock game was Baron Naone. Now, Baron Naone, I thought no matter what, he was going to be your tight end too. Um, I started noticing him getting a lot more opportunities in the red zone. In the mock game, when they got into the red zone, I noticed they were taking Decker DeGraff off the field and putting Barron in, and Barron had 2 touchdown passes. And these are things that, first of all, he looks bigger than all the other tight ends physically. So he looks like he'll be able to really block and hold his own as a blocker, which is stuff we had trouble with Decker last year, even though I think Decker has improved upon that throughout the fall camp. But now I think you have 2 tight ends that you'll be able to count on in the pass game. And if Decker can get his blocking up, when you put both of them on the field, it's going to kind of create matchup mismatches against the defense. And Barron's a big body who's proven himself through camp that to he'll be able to play that tight end position and maybe play at that starting level that we really need. Another, well, Barron's not a freshman, but another freshman though that's making a lot of noise, and he just doesn't seem to go away, and he starts making play after play after play, and that's on the other side of the ball. And I'm talking about Ramzak Fruean, sorry. Um, you know, I remember when we stayed before camp that he was kind of a freshman wild card. And then I started noticing as we went throughout August that he was getting reps with the first team. Him and Cody Green were battling. And it's another freshman doing a lot of stuff. By the time we got to the mock game, you started noticing that he was your starting edge. And Jed Fish came out and confirmed it. Ramzak Fruean is going to be your starting edge come game one against Wazoo. And I think his size and speed is something that you really hope and love. But what I think really is doing it, and it's different than in the past, is these kids are coming in and signing on that early signing day period. They're getting enrolled by January, which gets them into the weight room and gets them working out for 8 months before camp starts. And they're also getting their reps in the spring. And I think what you're seeing is these guys are able to start evolving before they get into their freshman season. And they're really benefiting from that extra time. And I think Ramzak is a perfect example of that. He's gotten bigger, he's gotten stronger, but more than anything, he's gotten smarter. And I believe in the talent. Now I want to see how quickly it shows and how quickly the game slows down for him. And you start seeing it in the Big Ten. Now, speaking of the defensive front, including Ramzak, might be a lot better than we thought. Now, with Ramzak and with Deuce being able to produce some pressure, and we started seeing that, especially in this mock game on Saturday. But you're starting to see it across the board. DCB got himself a sack during the mock game. Deshaun Watts, Omar Khan, Victor Sanchez Hernandez sliding in and playing defensive tackle, Jacob Lane, Conley, Elenius Davis. I mean, across the board, you're starting to see bodies pop up, and these guys are starting to really play. And it's gonna be hard to keep guys off the field. I mean, Lane, even himself, like I said, Lane's always been able to get a little bit of pressure. He looks even better this year. I think the biggest takeaway, though, that you're seeing is you're seeing the size on the defensive line that we haven't seen at Washington maybe ever. And you're starting to see it mixed with the talent where these guys are frontline talent and they're going to be able to hold up against some of these big time opponents we're going to see when we go play Indiana or when we have to head down to Autzen to play Oregon or Nebraska in Lincoln, or when we have to head to USC. We're going to be able to, up front, we're going to be able to hold our own with anybody that we play in our division. And I think it's the first time that you're going to be able to say that, along with they have the depth to do it. A freshman that has really kind of caught my eye, especially the last, I want to say 2.5 weeks. And I don't know if he's going to start just because the guys in front of him, I think, are that good. But he's definitely going to get playing time. Is when we look to the secondary is Jeron Jones. I brought this up last week, but every time I'm watching him at practice, August 9th, he gets an interception. On the 13th, he's getting first team reps. On the 15th, he's getting nice pass breakups and more first team reps. In the mock game, he was your starting corner and he held his own against some of these wide receivers. And I think he's definitely going to be in the rotation. I think, your starters are going to definitely be Dylan Robinson, E-Man, and Rashawn Clark. But I think Elias Johnson and Jeron Jones are both looking really, really good and battling for those backup corner positions. And I think those are going to be the first guys you see come off the bench. And I think you might see like a Ramon Adams come and slide in and play some nickel. But the youth movement is here. Like I had been saying over and over and over again, they aren't waiting their turn. These freshmen are way too good, and they're playing. Even Rashawn Duncan, I watched him play, and he was running mostly with the twos during the mock game. But he's feisty. He's fighting. He's out there trying to make plays, and looks really, really, really good doing it. You know, when we look at Ryan Walters and what he wants to do with all these pieces, because I started just, laying out all the different guys you saw at defensive line, now at the secondary. And then, we have 4 or 5 linebackers that can all play. Donovan Robinson was getting a lot of first team reps with ZRS and X-ray being banged up. And he looks good. So when you're seeing the mock game, the different combinations that they had, like the first team that I saw out there as the defensive line was Ramzak, Elenius Davis, DCB, and Jacob Lane, and they look good with Buddha and Donovan Robinson playing linebacker, and then your secondary was Carnley Jones, Clark, McLaughlin, and RDA, and they looked so good today. That they looked so good, just those starters. And then you started seeing Connolly rotating in with the ones. You saw different three safety packages where either Menke or Wright comes in and plays that third safety, or even Gavin Day. Um, RDA playing up on the line, man. They like him in the box because he likes to hit, but he also is really good at covering tight ends. And I think with man-to-man coverage, he's the type of guy that could do anything. And I think Ryan Walters really likes that. And then, watching a guy like Ramzak, who's a great rush edge, but when he drops back into coverage, he's so fluid because he's so athletic. And then Deuce Davis, man. Deuce Davis was getting a lot of pressure and being able to provide run support. And I think he's going to be kind of your hot rod defensive end when it's a pass down. He's one of the guys you're going to want to keep on the field. I think when Walters gets into this, you're going to see lots of different formations where maybe you see 5 down linemen on the front, or you see a 5-man front, or maybe you might see 3 different linebackers playing, or 3 different safeties playing. You might see guys like Rashawn Clark, who's playing your nickel, but then drop back and play a safety. They're also versatile and they can do everybody's job. And I think that's going to create like so many options for him where, hey, a guy's in a certain place and you're going to be able to blitz him when they think he's covering man to man, or you're going to be able to play somebody down in the box and they're not going to think that guy can be great run cover and run support, and he is. This year is going to be very, very interesting, and I think Ryan Walters has all kinds of weapons to utilize, even more so than he had last year. Now, the offensive line, what I think we started to see why that depth matters, especially here towards the end of camp as we've been dealing with bumps and bruises. Now, Landon Hatchett's been recovering for most of camp, even though he's participated in a lot of the contact drills, he hasn't been. And in his place, we've seen Colt Dietrich really show his versatility, which seems to be, a common concept amongst this team, but he looks really, really good at center. And I was talking to my guy Hood. My guy Hood thinks he's gonna be the starting center for your Washington Huskies at some point this year. I think the offensive line is kind of set going into this first game. I think is going to be Green, Mills, Landon Hatchett, Champ, and as a party. But in the mock game, because there was guys banged up, Champ was a little bit banged up. Um, I think you're going to end up seeing. We saw Green, Mills, Dietrich at center, Gary and Hatchet at guard, and Azzo at tackle. And when you saw them play, they looked pretty damn good. I mean, I saw Gary and had the one offsides like on their own like 2 yard line, which we don't need that. But besides that, they were able to move the ball very, very well. And the offense looks like if these guys end up missing any extended period of time, the backups are ready to get in there and they could play on that same exact level. And a guy like a Colt Dietrich who can play any of the five positions on the offensive line is going to be invaluable on a team like this in the Big Ten. One of my biggest concerns going into to especially fall camp, but just from last season was special teams. The kicking game, I thought just wasn't very good last year. We missed we missed a lot of kicks, but we also like our a lot of our punts weren't very good and like trying trick plays and scoring in the red zone, needing our special teams to come through for us just didn't look good. I think we have our punter and our kicker in place, and I think we have guys. It's very with the kicking game, it's going to be very situational who comes in for what kind of kicks, and I think that's okay. As long as our punter can boom the pumps, which I think he can, I think we're going to end up being okay. When we're looking in the return game, Rashawn Clark, I think, is your punt returner, and I saw him and Quaid Carr both returning kicks. So I think you're going to see some real fireworks from that return game because both Clark and Quaid Carr are very athletic and very explosive, and I'm very curious to see what they look like in the returning game. All right. So to end this, I want to tell you guys about my five biggest conclusions from fall camp, and it's kind of like a recap of what we just went through. Number five is freshmen are going to play. That's been a theme all camp. It's something I've been talking about. I've been putting out clips about guys like Ramzak, Cody Green, Jeron Jones, DCB, Brian Bonner, Trez Davis, Jordan Clay. These guys all look good, and I think they're all going to get chances. Gavin Day, too, make sure his name gets in there, are all going to get chances to play this year. And I think they're all ready, and they all benefited from that time in here. Number four, Washington is deeper than I expected, especially around the fronts, both offensive and defensive fronts, and in the secondary. You know, the freshmen being so ready to play has provided this depth, and then the guys that we went and got in the transfer portal, the Deshaun Wattses of the world, and the Darren Conleys of the world, and the Emans, those guys are all creating this roster that is built to compete at the Big Ten level and at the highest levels of college football. And the backups behind them have shown the readiness to step in if somebody gets hurt. Number three, and I said this already, Rashid Williams is your wide receiver one, and it's a matter of everything we've already talked about. Damon feels comfortable when he's in trouble going to him. At least he's shown that in the fall and in the mock games. And I think that we're in for some highlight reel catches and a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns between those two. Number two, Quaid Carr is your RB1. We already went over that. You guys already know. And number one, Washington can be really, really good. And I'd like to say this. I'm not going to say the playoffs. I'm not going to say Big Ten championship. What I'm going to do is I don't know what Washington record's going to be. I think they could win 10 games, but I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how they're going to handle the best teams on their schedule. But after watching this team throughout camp, I feel more confident about this than I did weeks ago. And the reasons why are quarterback, size, athleticism, depth, and young talent. That's why. There's all these reasons to feel positive, and we'll know when the lights turn on and they start playing the big boys. But right now, that's how it feels coming out of camp. Now comes the fun part. No more projecting. No more camp battles. No more trying to figure out who's running with the ones. Next time we see these guys, it's going to be against Wazoo with the lights on. And I think Washington has a chance to be extremely, extremely special. And I don't think there's any way that they don't at least impress us this year. So that's how I'm going to close it today. This is Mondays on Montlake. I'm your host, Montlake Miguel. Make sure you guys are tuning in because it's going to be a fun year, especially as I kind of roll Mondays on Montlake into the season. Go Dogs.